Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and we are lifelong Catholics. And what we do is all for free and for our love of Jesus Christ and for the Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to finally finish up on the demonic CIA council called Vatican II, and the man who pushed the Spirit of Vatican II upon us. And we are with Brother Alexis Bonillo.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. It's been a long absence, and I want to thank everyone who's been praying for me. My health has gotten back. And so we are adding our installment here on Michael Novak. And when you hear that name, you say, but he's a conservative. This is our long series we're doing on the ideologic warfare program organized by the U.S. military and the CIA as agents of the Skull and Bones lodges in New York City against the Catholic Church to bring her down, to change her religion, and to make her look so bad that you think America is the savior of the world. And the fruit of that is that people think Trump is going to save the world and not Jesus Christ, or that you could save the world without Jesus Christ. So we've covered a lot of people already in this program, people you've never heard about, and the information AJ has uncovered is all come from this wonderful book that you really need to get a copy of if you want to know what's going on in the church today and what's going on in the last century. And its title is John Courtney Murray, Time, Life, and the American Proposition. And what's the subtitle there, AJ?
How the CIA's doctrinal warfare program changed the Catholic Church by David A. Wimhoff. He's a lawyer in South Bend, Indiana, and law professor at Notre Dame University.
And this is a highly researched, detailed book. You know, one thing I'm really amazed about the content of this book that we've been going through is that this lawyer writes history better than most historians. He dug down, he got all the facts, and he just told the story. Mm-hmm. And you didn't hear this from the pulpit. You didn't hear this from your Catholic paper. You didn't hear this from your Traddy paper. You didn't hear this from any website in the English-speaking world other than Order Militaris Radio TV, because we're here for Jesus Christ and defend his church against all her enemies. And all these other groups, it turns out, all have some connection to the Time Life program of warfare against the church. And that's why they only give you part of the truth and dangle a lot of lies in front of you. So I'm really surprised, AJ. You mentioned that this book talks about Michael Novak, because when I was growing up, Michael Novak was considered by the Traddies, the conservatives, one of the leading thinkers, writers. Oh, you had to read First Things. You had to read these kind of magazines. I don't know how many times I was pushed by the New Oxford Review to get this writer and read this thing, and it was all the thing to do. But he wasn't, and he isn't what most people think he was or is. Yeah. So let's start with who he was, something about his biography.
So Novak was born September 9th, 1933 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, to a Slovak American family, son of Irina Sakmar. That is not a Slovakian name. I believe it was Jewish, I think, when I looked it up the first go around. And Michael J. Novak. He was married to Karen Lube Novak, a professional artist and illustrator who died of cancer in August 2009. They have three children, Richard, Tanya, and Yanya, and 4 grandchildren. Novak earned a Bachelor of Arts degree, summa cum laude, in philosophy and English from Stonehill College in 1956. A Bachelor of Sacred Theology from the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome, and Masters of Arts degree in History, Philosophy of Religion from Harvard in 1966.
Okay, that intellectual preparation shows you that this guy is a liberal. Stonehill College is an ultra liberal school. The Gregorian is the font of all heresy in the church, and he's an ex-seminarian, isn't he?
Yep. So,
And you'll see why shortly.
yep. So one of the times people who covered the second session, Robert Blair Kaiser, he wrote the book Pope Council in the World, asked fellow ex-seminarian Novak to write a book on the second session because troubles developing in his own life that necessitated his departure from Rome, preventing Kaiser from completing the contract on the book. Novak was at the time a freelance reporter for the Commonwealth and the National Catholic Reporter, covering the second session of the council. He accepted Kaiser's offer, and Novak covered the third session for Time.
Okay. So that's a really bad sign, as we have covered in this show. The Time Life is the CIA front for influencing the council and suggesting, influencing, preparing, and bringing the church down during it through its doublespeak. So if you become one of their reporters, you already have a lot of ideologic baggage that brings you to the side of Skull and Bones Lodge, which is who's behind Time and Life. And what was his great achievement as a reporter?
It was to change how the church thought, think, and he covers it in his second book that came out in 1964, A New Generation, American and Catholic. In A New Generation, American and Catholic, Novak set out to reconcile two incompatible theologies by calling one Catholic and the other American or Protestant on the way to providing a modus vivendi to be American and Catholic in the present generation. Novak claimed that the Catholic of our generation is by virtue of the very air he breathes indebted to the Protestant inheritance. He too benefits not though as if all has been gained by gains won seemingly in the teeth of his own inheritance. There was a Catholic conscience now, quite different from that of the Catholic generations closer to peasant paternalistic of Europe. Even though Catholic intellectually found their best expressions in Europe in men like Kung, Geisman, Rahner, Danilou, and others, American Catholics were to be decisive agents of change because, as Novak put it, the millions of Catholic graduates of the United States were the most sophisticated, religiously educated laity the church has ever known and will one day prove more important voice. And his second book came out just in time to exhort the U.S. bishops to action at the council.
So he was a real ideologue. His career goes some strange ways after becoming a reporter, doesn't it?
Yeah. So after he becomes a reporter, he then becomes a teacher at Stanford University from 1965 to 1968. Then he becomes the dean of a new experimental school at the newly found State University of New York at Old Westbury, Long Island. So after that, in 73 to 74, Novak launches the humanities program at the Rockefeller Foundation.
Yeah, you don't launch anything at the Rockefeller Foundation unless you are already a Freemason. There's just no way it's going to happen. It's no way it does happen. And you have to already be involved in a lot of the things they're up to because they got to trust you 100%, because that is like a big mark of approval.
Yeah.
And the Rockefellers are skull and bones.
So then he goes from the Rockefeller Foundation. Well, he stays with the Rockefeller Foundation, but then accepts a tenured position at the Syracuse University as university professor and Leiden Watson Distinguished Professor of Religion. In the fall semesters of 87 and 88, Novak held the W. Harold and Martha Welsh Chair as Professor of American Studies at the University of Notre Dame. In the spring of 1978, Novak joined the American Enterprise Institute for Social Policy Research as resident scholar, a position he held more than a decade. He would later stay with the American Enterprise Institute as the George Frederick Jewett Chair of Religion, Philosophy, and Public Policy, as the Institute's Director of Social and Political Studies. He also was a frequent contributor to magazines and journals, including First Things and National Review. In 1994, he was a signer of the document Evangelicals, Catholics Together on December 12th. Then he supported the presidency candidate Mitt Romney. Then he was also on the board. He was the founding member of the Board of Trustees of Ave Maria University and was a member of the Ave Maria Mutual Funds Catholic Advisory Board.
So there you hear some names. Mitt Romney, this guy was involved with Mitt Romney way back when people thought Romney was a conservative.
Yep.
Mitt Romney is a Mormon bishop. So now you see where Rockefeller money and stamp of approval takes you. And if you sent your children to Ave Maria University thinking it was Catholic, now you understand why its church looks so bizarre and so Masonic. And those magazines you mentioned, First Things and what was the other one?
National Review.
National Review, those are CIA fronts. We've already covered that. So Michael Novak is clearly tied to the whole system of ideologic warfare against the Catholic Church. You can guarantee that everything this guy writes is attacking the faith and distorting it. It's no surprise then that he is the father of one of the most viciously deceptive phrases that comes out of the 60s about Vatican II and has been used to destroy the career of every Catholic cardinal, bishop, and priest and religious in the church because they were opposed.
Yep. So by the third session, Michael Novak had replaced Robert Blair Kaiser as Times Vatican correspondent, and it was on his watch in its October 23rd, 1964 edition, to be precise, when the infamous term, the Spirit of Vatican II, first reared its ugly head in Times pages. It would prove next to impossible to exercise this spirit once it appeared. The term came to represent, in one neat, psychologically debilitating phrase, the essence of the Americanization of the Church, which continues to this day, since Novak previously mentioned in his writings the existence of a spirit surrounding this event. One may surmise that he, in conjunction with Times editors, coined this infamous phrase. Then, now, you want to hear something that you might think, oh, this sounds like the chatties. Ambitious young Catholics who were avid to advance their careers by advancing Americanism in the church could have consulted Novak's article in October 1964 edition of U.S. Catholics entitled, "Will the Council Build the Bridge?" as their guidebook. Novak explained the importance of the words at the council. At every stage, the council fathers must make compromises about which words to use. Compromise was necessary because there was no unity. American Catholics and those from Northern Europe were different from Latin Catholics. Italian theology, he wrote, has been able to continue largely unchanged for several generations, but in Northern Europe and to some extent the United States, the discoveries of the secular world and the Protestant world have forced theologians to look upon the scriptures and upon history from a new perspective. New questions are asked, more difficult and more complex theological methods are required, wider knowledge of psychology, linguistics, archaeology, literary forms, historical researches is demanded. Such contemporary theology has thus had to think out the meaning of the Gospels in a new intellectual context, not less worthy than the intellectual context of 19th century Italy and Ireland, for example.
What a bunch of hullabaloo. That is such anti-Catholic bigotry. It's very deceptive. There is unity in the church. It's called the Catholic faith. And it's not Italian theology, it's Catholic theology. That was what we got in the encyclicals up to Pius XII. And you see how cleverly misinformation, disinformation, prejudice, outright lies are mixed into his narrative manipulation of what's going on at the council, and to make it, and to run he's running a cover. He's running a cover for the CIA and the US military. So you don't realize who's bribing all these officials to write these things and say these things and vote on these things. So now you know where the Spirit of Vatican II comes from. And as soon as anyone cites that as being a principle of interpreting Vatican II, you know you're talking to someone who's totally immersed in the CIA narrative and doesn't have the foggiest idea of what really went on at Vatican II. And if your bishop says to you, well, we have to follow the Spirit of Vatican II, you should cite this book to your bishop and say, well, since that idea was invented by the CIA Front Time magazine, are you meaning to tell me that you're an agent of the CIA and are receiving money from the US government to destroy the Catholic faith in our diocese? Is that what you're saying, Your Excellency? That's the way you should respond to him, hit him right back with all the cannons, and then give him a copy of this book if he wants to read it. And after that, pay him no attention whatsoever unless he withdraws the statement Spirit of Vatican II, because then he is what I just said he was.
Oh.
And if he is an enemy of the church, he is not in communion with the church, and he is not your bishop and has no authority to swat a fly on the wall in the chancery.
Yeah. So goes on. The author goes on. Every Novak piece in time went out of its way to discredit the church and churchmen, and this is what Novak wrote. Are well aware that the church is not the spiritual leader of modern society. Some of them seem to be eating the bitter grapes of envy when they speak of the modern world. Without educated young gadflies egging it on, the church ran the danger of coaxing the world back to where it was, rather than at joining the struggle forward into a new civilization. Because Catholics feel alien from modern philosophy, modern art, and modern political and social revolutions. The church had to become like the world, or more exactly, like the prince of the world, America. This meant that the fourth aim of the council is to end our isolation and construct a bridge to the world in which we live. To be Catholic is to share in the life, love, and goodwill of God towards men. It is to cherish every human value, to work harder than any at constructing a just and free and acquiring civilization. To be Catholic is to be open to the uniqueness and importance of every man one meets. It is to be Catholic with a small c, eager for all that is good, a force for unity among men of all cultures, temperaments, dispositions. It is to live in hope rather than in fear.
Now, if you can connect the dots of what he just said to the entire program of Jorge Mary Bergoglio, you're an intelligent Catholic because it is the exact gender. What he's basically saying is Catholics should stop being Christian. You should start accept the Masonic New World Order because the Great Reset is coming and we need the church on board. And that is the sum of Michael Novak. So shocking, but profound. This is a wonderful book of history that we're reading from in this program. And you heard about it on Order Militaris Radio TV. So as a footnote, I ask all the Catholics listening to this program to start asking questions about all those other Catholic media outlets in the English-speaking world. What is really their position on anything? And have they bought into the CIA narrative? Did they ever quote Novak favorably? Have they in the past and now they changed it to and hide it? Are they graduates of institutes founded by the CIA, like or under CIA influence, like Christendom College, Ave Maria University, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford? What agenda are they really pushing? And why do they love or hate Bergoglio so much and yet insist he's the Pope?
Yep.
And why they say nothing about Benedict, who everyone agreed was validly elected. So this all ties up together with the whole agenda. One thing I notice about these laymen who have followed in the footsteps of Michael Novak one way or the other is they really want the agenda of the council to go forward, because prior to the council, laymen couldn't publish a newspaper, they couldn't start an apostolate, they couldn't do squat because they're not members of the clergy. The church has always taught, if you're not willing to vow poverty, chastity, and obedience, give up everything for Jesus Christ, you are not a trustworthy witness to the gospel, and you cannot be someone who represents the church. And all these modern talking laymen, they would never accept that, but they want to tell you 24/7 what you should be thinking and what you should be believing. And that's not Catholic. It's not even Christian. It's Protestant though.
Yep. So,
Well, thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. Are we going to be doing other episodes on this topic? What are some things that people could look forward to?
Yeah, we could continue. We just see what we got here in the contents part here. Yeah. So after this, it goes into after Vatican II, and it goes into how everything changed after the council.
Okay, that I think we should cover that, because show what the effect of the CIA propaganda program was. A lot of the people listening to our videos, I think, may be too young to even remember that. I was just a little kid at the time. I scarcely knew what was going on before it hit us, and that I think would be a very good program to cover.
So please like and
Thank
share.
you for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV.
Yep. So please like and share this program. Please like and share it on Rumble. Not sure how much traction will get over there because, well, they don't seem like our videos too much over there since it went public on Wall Street.
Mhm.
So stay tuned for our next programs from the book and exposing what happened after the council. This is Order Militaris Video TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.